Hi, everyone. This is your host, Kristen Howe, and I am excited to welcome you to our call today with our guest, Dianne Collins. Dianne is considered one of the most important thought leaders of our time. She's a two-time award-winning best-selling author and the creator of Quantum Think, a new system of thinking that leaps us from the outdated old world view limits of the industrial age to the up-to-date new world view of our current quantum age. Dianne has appeared on more than 100 radio and TV shows, was a keynote speaker at the International Enneagram Association, a featured guest speaker at the University of Miami, and was invited to present in the prestigious lecture series of the Florida International University program in the study of spirituality, along with distinguished speakers including the Dalai Lama. With her husband and business partner, Alan K. Collins, Dianne consults leaders in the world's leading corporations, including Accenture, AT&T, CNN, and DuPont, as well as to officials in the United States government. Dianne is a graduate of the University of Miami in philosophy and psychology and is a lifelong student of Siddha Yoga, mind science, energy mastery, and leading-edge models that make life better and more joyful. Her work has transformed and inspired the lives of thousands of people and hundreds of businesses around the world. She's a master of translating ancient knowledge into quantum modern wisdom and puts it all together to integrate Eastern and Western mastery traditions, the principles of subtle energy and resonance, spiritual connection, and universal laws with cutting-edge quantum discoveries to make it practical in everyday life. Dianne is determined to share the way for us to finally live the wisdom, not just know it. To do this, she takes you straight to the core of the dynamics of creation and, most importantly, shares how to master creating and manifesting. And on today's call with Dianne, you will discover the 5 essential must-know quantum principles that accelerate your mastery of effortless manifestation. You'll find out the missing link for effective thought creation. You'll discover the observer effect, what it means, how it works, and how to use it to create the new you going forward. You'll distinguish the difference between quantum thinking and ordinary thinking, and you'll discover a way to make the leap from knowing the wisdom of science and spirituality to actually living it. I can't wait. I'm so excited for this call. Dianne, thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome to the call.
Thank you so much, Kristen. It is my sheer delight to be with you and everyone.
I'm so excited to be able to share you with everyone. And, I can't wait to share a little bit of your story because, talk about manifestation. I mean, that's really everything that you're about. And I know you had a revelation around the topic of creating reality that many say is the missing link. So if you could talk to us about what that revelation was, how it led you to create this groundbreaking new system of thinking that's changed so many people's lives. And in there, if you can share your story, I know that would be so amazing for everyone to hear.
Yes, actually, part of the story is what led me to make the revelation. And what happened is, like many people, probably everyone listening right now, Kristen, as I was growing up, you look into the world and I start to see some of the discrepancies between how we aspire to be, how we know we could be, how the, spiritual wisdom and the virtues that we all want to live up to, and then the discrepancy between that and reading any of the news headlines. Now, this has been going on for, I suppose, forever since recorded history. So it's not something that's, yesterday or today. And so at a young age, I thought to myself, well, there has to be something that makes literally, I don't know how I knew it at such probably teenage, but there has to be a literal leap, some kind of elevation or leap shift in consciousness. And so I set out, like many of us, on the path to discover how is that going to happen? How are we going to create something that we know will be a better way of life for everyone? So along the way, I've studied many things, including many different yoga and meditation systems, particularly interested in mind science, read all of the classic books that we've all read. And of course, this expression, as you think, so you become. Thought creates reality. Now, we come across this thought in many of the wisdom traditions. The Buddha said, all that you are is a result of what you have thought. Both the Christian and Judaic Bibles read, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. In the Upanishads, the rishis, the holy men of ancient India, taught one's own thought is one's world. What a person thinks is what he becomes. So I was, cogitating, thinking about this, and I thought, okay, thought creates reality. Well, how does it do that? And if all you had to do was change your thought to change the world, to change my life, then why does it still look the way it does? It seemed to me, Kristen, that we hadn't yet at that point had come anywhere near mastery of this idea of thought creation. So I kept upon my journey of research and discovery, and I'll fast forward to encountering quantum physics and realizing that the quantum physicists were now beginning to converge with and prove what classic spiritual universal wisdom has been since time immemorial. And along the way, I started to work on a project with Dr. Fred Alan Wolf, who many of you may have known, and he's a very popular author and just a brilliant quantum physicist. And Fred and I became friendly, and he became my unofficial, which I later made him my official mentor in quantum physics. And one of the things that Fred taught me is that the discoveries of science, when a scientist makes a new discovery, they come up with a new terminology. And then that new term comes into our language, and eventually it filters into the way we think. And the best example, the most common example of this I can give you is the example of a quantum leap. So as I say, you probably couldn't think of a quantum leap before the year 1927 when it came into our language. Well, maybe you're a little bit too young for that, but you get my drift. So what happened was when the father of quantum physics, Max Planck, made the discovery that energy moves in bursts, which he called packets of quanta, that it didn't move smooth and continually. So hence he called these quantum leaps, or someone did along the way. Now, this term is very popular, and we use it all the time to mean anything, any kind of a change or transformation that's a completely discontinuous with the past, with the way things have gone. So I started thinking about this. By the way, I should mention that quantum thinking is not about science. It's about how the discoveries of science shape the way we think. So I started thinking about, that's a pretty interesting, what Fred taught me. And then I realized this. This was my first revelation, that it wasn't one thought at a time. It wasn't one concept at a time, Kristen. It was a whole system. Why? Because we live in a universe of whole systems, and we don't realize it, but our thinking takes place as a system. It's a whole. And so when we have a major shift in the worldview, what is the worldview? Very simply, what we believe to be true about the nature of reality and how it works. The assumptions that we don't even really think about them, Kristen. They're in the background of our society, our culture, our everyday world, even those of us who are familiar with the most advanced principles. until we make this distinction in what system, okay, if thinking creates reality, what's creating our thinking? So that was my revelation, is that we are in a quantum age. We have all this new knowledge. Everything is interconnected and interrelated. It's an energy influx universe informed by intelligence. Resonance and sympathetic resonance is how anything gets attracted and created and manifest. Yet, our thinking is still very much conditioned by what I lovingly call the old world view, the industrial age world view that made the declaration, only matter is real. So what was the second revelation? Because there were really two, and this is what I would call the big one, is that as you think, so you become. Well, we would be perfect manifestors of reality if and when we are actually at choice in our thoughts. And so the revelation is what I call the myth of choice. We imagine we think freely, that we're choosing our thoughts, that we're thinking independently. We, of course, all want to think of ourselves as independent thinkers. But the fact is, we're conditioned by the assumptions of the worldview. And the worldview that's primarily right now, and this is, of course, changing. This is what my work is all about, and I'm sure all of the people who you present in this series, is that it is shifting. But we have to be able to make these distinctions so that we realize this old worldview, which gave rise to machinery. It's literally called the classical mechanical worldview, that it saw the universe as machine. Now the quantum view sees the universe as mind-based. The old worldview saw the universe as matter-based. Well, the point is, how did that map onto our thinking? In many ways, our thinking has become mechanical and automatic too. Now, this is not to insult anyone, because I'm here with the intent that we are able to make these distinctions so that we can choose our thoughts, so that we are not at the effect of these automatic thought pathways that I call least action pathways. It's a term I adapt from science. Least action pathways, the way the thought or the energy goes because it's been that route before. And the fact is that when you begin to quantum think and you understand that we exist in fields, and that we're literally in what I like to call now for fun, the thoughtosphere, that, Kristen, this may sound surprising to a lot of people, but it's the good news, because a lot of the thoughts that we have, I call them just visiting from the thoughtosphere, they're not even our own. So every moment, we have the opportunity to choose our thought, to choose our intent in the form of thought, energized by emotion, felt in the feeling tone of our being as our own inner knowing. This is what creates resonance. Every moment we can create with choosing our thoughts, but we can only do that when we can recognize those thoughts which are automatic. And these, I would say, have been my great revelation that led me to create Quantum Think. And what Quantum Think does is it puts everything together as a system of principles and practices for the mind and awareness. So when you start to study them or glean them, there's a certain method to learning Quantum Think, which I'll get into later in this call. But what happens is you begin kind of linearly, one distinction at a time, as I call the quantum think principles, distinctions. And then all of a sudden, like a quantum effect, the system kicks in. And you're literally thinking from the context of the system. The system gives you a new blueprint for the whole way that you think, so that everything that we learn about and that we are here to master together in this series, all of it, subtle energy, how to use it, how to work with our resonant fields, how to create properly statements of intent that activate the energy and information so that we're attracting what we want. When you begin to think from these principles rather than looking at them from the, let's say, less aware point of view, then your mastery in manifestation becomes amazingly successful.
Wow, I love the whole that whole thing of, it's not one belief at a time. It's a system. And like all of this, it just makes so much sense. I can see why it's the missing link. So with this shift and with the shift that's happening right now, obviously we all want to shift with you to quantum thinking because that seems to make sense. So are the things that you were just talking about, is that sort of with restructuring our thinking, is that how we do that?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up about the shifting times, because it's important for us to really examine how each of us fit into us. Now, everyone knows, and we've known for a long time, and I like to study what I call the energies of the time, the trends, and it's been going on for, I don't know how long, but decades, and it will continue for decades forward. So that every one of us know we're in this shifting time. And we can see that the systems and structure that have served us well until now have kind of reached the limits of their effectiveness. And this includes our thinking structure. So when we say it's the end of the time as we've known it, then this is said in the most positive context, because it means it's time, as all of us know. And as you and I were in a conversation before we came on the call, that everything begins with our inner state. So when you think about, well, what's going to really have us go to this, whole new world for humanity and for the earth and how we relate interconnectedly to the earth as a living being and so on, and all the different things that we hear about, talk about, or interested in, it really means that it's time for this kind of a universal shift in consciousness. Now, 2 points that I want to make about this. First of all, that it's not enough to simply know that consciousness is evolving. We hear about, the light energies are elevating and it's a higher frequency, and all the different ways that people talk about this. It's that we have to do something about it ourselves. You and I, really, it's time for us to become a force in it. And there's another aspect of this. We want to be able to take advantage of this, we could say, kind of intensified energy that, as I said, will be going on for quite some time in the future. And I know people are feeling it now. And so it's really time for us to be proactive in this and to be able to use the energies of the time and to know ourselves as a force in it happening. So, it's a paradox, and the quantum world is full of paradox. So it's that, yes, there is a new worldview emerging in our times, and we are the ones who are actually bringing it about. So, you could say, well, as I like to, people always ask me, Kristen, well, what is quantum thinking? And I like to start, this is my maverick part of me, with the question, well, why should we? Right? You're growing up, well, here, you should quantum think. Well, why should I? Well, when you look at three conditions we find in our world today, and this is also part of this shift, and this is very, very nuts and bolts, practical. I mean, this is something we are experiencing. There's nothing esoteric about that, what I'm about to say. So first of all, we know we're experiencing an accelerated pace of change. Now, this is actually a scientific fact. And, we don't need a scientist to tell us, because you can experience that it's kind of almost strange, but time seems to be speeding up. And we know that our advanced technologies have been a factor in bringing this about, this accelerated pace of change. Secondly, we're experiencing increasing complexity and choice. Again, because of our technology, this, wonderful, whatever the internet and computer technologies, digital technologies have made possible for us, it still has caused, these dilemmas. As Einstein said, the problems we have cannot be solved with the same level of thinking that created them. So the third factor is that daily, because of these shifting structures, kind of the dissolution of the old so new can emerge, we're experiencing daily uncertainties. And the unexpected has really become the new norm. So the question is, how do we deal with all of this effectively? Because, as I was saying, we're still under the influence of a lot of the old worldview conditioning of our thinking. And what was that? It was, if they said only matter is real. Now, if you translate matter as circumstances, physical or other circumstances, and, when you're dealing in the world of matter, in the world of the five senses, and then you're dealing in this, chronological time, physical space, everything is step by step. Before you make a commitment to something or, make a decision or make a huge shift, you want to have all the circumstances lined up. Should I marry this man? I don't know. Let's check out his data, So we don't realize how subtly this affects us. So we're kind of still, even though we know, those of us listening, there are quantum effects. Life occurs in quantum leaps. We can affect a transformation, and it can instantaneously transform the whole field we're operating in, the whole resonant field. Even still, we have these vestiges of trying to accomplish things in the how-to step-by-steps. Now, how-tos are wonderful, but with these three conditions, the pace of change, the increasing amount of choice, and the daily uncertainties, we literally have to take a quantum leap in the way that we think, in the structure from which we think. This is why I say I created Quantum Think. I know that I say, really, it chose me. We all have, our unique wisdom that comes through us. So in a sense, I didn't one day say, hey, I think I'll create a new system of thinking and call it Quantum Think. It just, it made itself known, and I distinguished it, and I'm the vehicle for it. And it's not that I'm even saying something that every one of us don't already know at some level of our being. If we didn't know it, we wouldn't be able to relate to it. So getting back, this old worldview conditioning, this industrial age conditioning of our thinking, if you're trying to keep up with the pace of change in a step-by-step, linear fashion, just saying it makes me breathless, you end up huffing and puffing, trying to keep up with the pace of it. Now, we all know that chronological time is something that we kind of map onto reality to use it in a practical, pragmatic way to have societal life be convenient. But there is this atmosphere, I'll call it, beyond time. So in a sense, we have to start living the wisdom. This is why I say my whole quest has been, how do we go from knowing the wisdom to living it, to being the walking, talking embodiments of it? So when we make this shift to a new foundation for our thinking, when we start living literally beyond time and use time as a tool, when we start to realize that as a matter of a daily way of being, to become more adept with what I call the natural faculties of mind, the power of intent, the ability to use intuition, but in a disciplined way until it becomes that it's not just once in a while, Kristen, it's like, wow, my intuition was really good on that. Or let me think about that now. It's that it's time for us to make the leap and start living from these faculties, learning to naturally be able to tune in to subtle energy and know how to work with it, know how to shift our own emotional state when we're not in a state that what our heart's desire is. So this is what this is all about, is, why should we quantum think? Because it really is necessary for us to take what I call, it's not even virtual, it's a literal quantum leap in thinking. And, this all sounds like, well, what's a quantum leap? And I could give you a 20-second experience of a leap in consciousness. Would you like to hear that right now?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. Just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, because we are quantum leaping in consciousness all the time. Every time we have a new thought, that's, we could say, a quantum leap. The difference is being able to do it consciously with the awareness that we're doing it. Okay, so here's the 20-second experience. Most of the time, we relate to ourselves as having a mind in a body, right?
Yes.
You relate to that. And we're standing in this mind, this consciousness in our body is standing on the earth and looking out into space, looking up at the stars, the moon, the sky, the sun, the planet. Okay, This is our kind of, by the way, least action pathways are neither good nor bad. They're just habits. So this is kind of our habit. Now, switch that around. Imagine, like an astronaut, that you are out in space, looking back at the earth, looking at yourself, standing on the earth. That's the 20-second experience, because that's how it is. We could say, how do you affect a quantum leap in consciousness to a new foundation for thinking? Is just like that. Everything, as we know, begins with intent. That's the dynamic of creation, the active dynamic. The passive dynamic being allowing, and then allow for what shows up consistent with your intent. So how we do it is we say, you know what? It's time. You have a conscious intent to start thinking from the principles rather than trying to apply them in a how-to manner. You live from them. If you want to know what it's like to live in New York City, and ride the subways and learn the streets there, and know what the smells and the sounds of New York City are, well, you can't really do that while you're living in Los Angeles. So, right? You got to take that flight. You got to go to New York and start to live from there. And this is the same thing that I'm saying. This is a quantum leap in consciousness.
I don't know. It's so clear now. It's like, oh, okay, I get it. That's amazing. That's fantastic. Okay, so you say there are 5 essential must-know quantum principles that accelerate your mastery of effortless manifestation, correct? So can you share those with us?
I would love to. Now, I've already started to share. I just want to say that these are principles that what I'm saying are absolutely, a necessity, essentials to be able to become masterful with manifestation. Okay. Now, for me, it's all about mastery because, what's the alternative? Mediocrity. So we want to make, right? What is it?
Right.
Why would we ever choose anything less than mastery?
Right.
So I want to go through these. We've already actually mentioned the first one, and that is that we think in a system. So we have to know that, like everything in the universe, it's a universe of whole systems, we think in a system, and when we can make the distinction in what is shaping our thinking, what's giving us our thinking? Is it the old world, linear, 5 sensory, I'll see it when I believe it, or, and is it quantum principles? So that's about taking the leap. And that's the first one. The second one is really, really important. Now, this, I want everyone to really listen closely to this, because this is the fundamental principle of the quantum reality. And that is that there are no absolutes. Now, I'm not talking about absolute in the sense of God or the divine or however you think of infinite creator. I'm talking about for ordinary human beings. There is no fixed and absolute way that reality is. Now, why is this important and how does it show up? Well, the old world view has conditioned us that you look at the circumstances, you gather evidence, we form conclusions, and then we tend to live from those conclusions. We make conclusions about ourselves. We make conclusions about other people. We make conclusions about our governments. We make conclusions about, everything. It's, again, Kristen, it's very subtle. It's almost like it's thinking you. You're not actually thinking this. So when you realize, and this is the difference between quantum thinking and positive thinking. Quantum thinking is not positive thinking. Quantum thinking is having these realizations that we're going through, these 5 right now. Okay. Now, when you realize that there isn't anything fixed and solid, why? Because the quantum reality is a reality, as we know, of energy in flux, always shifting and changing, informed by intelligence, and you and I, as conscious observers, are the ones we're the hub of the reality. It's like the internet. You're always online with infinite intelligence. You're always online with the internet. What reality is going to manifest is whatever you decide to click into, right? So this is why I say when you master your mind, you master your life, because when you become aware of what reality you're clicking into in any kind of habitual way, and it's not serving and giving you the results you want, you can interrupt it, because you know that just because you have a thought does not make it the truth. What is positive thinking? It's always good to have positive thoughts. Okay. But if you think that you're creating an intent and that affirming it 1,000 times, but you're creating an intent on top of a negative thought or feeling that you are holding, I would say, in your state of unawareness, that you are holding as any kind of truth or fixed circumstance, then this is called what my husband, Alan, says. It's like putting jelly over peanut butter, or taking a bite and pretending the peanut butter is not there. And this is one of the dilemmas that we have in manifestation. And this is all because we don't realize that there are no absolutes, no matter how much evidence we have stacked up to say, no, but my mother really is that way. We all get encountered with and faced with circumstances every day, many of which we don't want. So where do we have our power, Kristen? There are the circumstances, and then there is how we are related to those circumstances. And it is in this relationship where our power lies. So when you realize that there are no absolutes, reality, another way of saying it, reality is context dependent. When you create a statement of intent, it doesn't work because it's, quote, the truth. It doesn't work that way. It works because reality is context dependent, and we are the ones shaping the context. So it's not like you believe your own thoughts. You know, you can believe them from here until eternity, and that may not a manifestation make. It's that you have a new relationship with your thoughts. And this is everything that I'm doing right now. We're creating, as I speak, I'm distinguishing things that where we are creating a new relationship with our thinking, with our thoughts. And I wanted to actually do that next because the number 3 principle. Okay, so far we think in a system. There are no absolutes.
Okay.
We exist in fields. Now, conceptually, we know this, right? You know,
right.
we exist in fields. The fields are invisible. They're energy and intelligent. They create resonance. Now, what we may not have realized, and I mentioned it earlier, is that because we exist in fields, we exist in a mind field. And I like the way Dr. Fred Alan Wolf said it to me once. He said, you know, we imagine we're a body with a mind inside, but it's really more like we're a body in a giant mind, right? In this giant energy intelligent field. We're floating in the field. So when you realize this number 3 essential principle, that we exist in fields, you realize that you can make a distinction between thoughts that are just visiting, that you did not choose, that, you know, because we really are interconnected and interrelated. And thoughts come into our mind. Now, let's do a little experience of this right now, because this is where it's time for us to get total freedom from any influence of negativities, insecurities, doubts, fears that come your way. You ready for that?
Absolutely.
It's not that we're getting rid of the negative thoughts. What we are doing is releasing ourselves from their influence, their hold on us. We are creating a conscious relationship with our thoughts. So let's just to get into the mood of this, and it's very simple, and it will be very brief. Now, if you're in a place where you can get into a kind of a meditative state with your eyes closed, good. If not, you can just listen right along, and you'll get it anyway. But if you're driving, please do not do this. Okay, so let's just start off by taking a few deep, invigorating, centering breaths together. Breathe in slowly. Hold for a few seconds very naturally. Exhale gently. Sit up from the small of your back. Let your shoulders drop naturally. Close your eyes. Now, fields of awareness fields of energy, of intelligence, of connection. So wherever you are and whenever you're listening to this, we are connected in a powerful quantum field right now, beyond the ordinary boundaries of physical space and chronological time. We know we're all listening in different time zones, in different parts of the world, and yet we're connected through this field. And this field of connectedness is powerful because of our consciously shared intent. Now, with your eyes closed, notice any thoughts that are passing through your mind, through your awareness. Notice, did you choose that thought? Where did it come from? Consider, it's just visiting from this invisible field, from the thoughtosphere, from the mind field we all share. So if it is a thought you don't want, a judgment, something that doesn't serve you or others, realize that that thought is like a bird passing by your window. We live on the beach on the ocean side in South Florida, and so the pelicans come very, very closely by our windows. And we think of it this way: when you have a thought that visits any form of the I'm not good enough, the I don't know if I can do that, I wish she wasn't that way, any of these thoughts, let them just fly by like birds past your window. Because the fact is, if you were consciously choosing, you would not choose to have a disparaging thought about yourself or others. So just realize that as a result of our old worldview, kind of, that time in our evolution of consciousness, that in many ways these thoughts became automatic, that we don't have to own those thoughts. We don't have to identify with it. Let it pass by like a bird past your window. Now, that's it. And I'd like to ask you, Kristen, you did that with us, yes?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And what was your experience?
It was so interesting because as you said, where did that thought come from? It was a thought that I was like, oh, I have no idea, was my first. And then letting it go, watching it fly by like a bird, it just felt freeing. It felt completely freeing. I didn't feel like I had to be attached to it.
Exactly. You don't have to identify with it. You don't have to think, oh, my God, I'm thinking this way because my mother did this when I was 2 years old, or I had that terrible experience in a job, or, whatever it is. And, it's really no more complicated than what we just did. It's what we're doing is creating a conscious relationship with our thinking so that we can distinguish between thoughts that are coming in from the mind field and thoughts that you and I are initiating, the thoughts that we are generating. That's what living consciously with awareness, with awakened thinking is all about.
So is this, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I know that we said we were going to talk a little bit about the observer effect. Is that what it is, where we're sort of observing them like the bird that's flying out the window, that sort of thing?
Yes, this is related to it because the observer effect is this. And, in the quantum think system, I call it observer-created reality. And the spiritual masters have said this, that there's no separation between the observer, that's you and me, and what we're observing. The world exists on the screen of our own consciousness. So the world exists on the screen of your own consciousness. That's how the spiritual masters say it. The quantum physicists say it this way. The observer effect means there's no objective reality out there somewhere separate from us. There's nothing objective. It's that we are always shaping what we see. Now, because we exist in fields, we're always influencing the field. So if you are going, for example, to a business meeting, Kristen, and you are the observer, right, shaping the field, and suppose you have these thoughts visiting that are, oh dear, this potential client, he already has somebody he works with. I don't know whether he's going to want to do business with me, and I'm not sure I have my presentation carefully put together enough. Then when we say in the practice for observer-created reality and quantum think is to shift a predictable outcome, because you're able to recognize those thoughts as visiting thoughts, as thoughts that you do not have to identify with or own in any way. This all happens instantaneously. This is beyond time. Then on your way to this meeting, you notice the thoughts, you interrupt them, you say, oh, those are those least action pathway thoughts, and you, on the spot, create your intent. And the intent is created for both parties because you're creating an intent for the relational field. That an intent statement you might create in that instance is, Bill and I are excited about working together. I'm excited in what I'm presenting, and it's all working exactly the way we want it to go. And we're really happy we met. We're connected. And, again, this is not positive thinking. This is recognizing that we're operating in a context that was not going to give you the results of the resonant field that you were coloring with those unwanted thoughts that aren't even your own, and that you can now shape the field. And you can do this in advance. You can do this beyond the physical limits. You don't have to be right there with the person. And this is what we do. We start to live this way as a way of life. So yes, thank you for bringing that up. That is how you work with the observer-created reality.
This is also empowering. Okay, so now I need to know the last two. So you gave us the first three must-know quantum principles. Now I need to know the last two because I'm so excited about it. It's also empowering.
Okay, well, the last two, the idea of this is that you can grasp it in an instant because life occurs in quantum leaps. So the number 4 essential must-know principle is that the 0 point state is where we create. Now, what is the 0 point state? 0 point is what scientists say when energy settles down and is almost at rest. Everything always has a fluctuation. So you could say, when you're in a state of meditation, this is what's going on. The cognitive thinking, when I use mind, I'm using mind as consciousness, as awareness. I'm not talking about the click, click, click of the cognitive thought. But in this case, when your mind settles down and you experience yourself in that state, that is where we are in the experience of our connection to infinite intelligence. This is where we create. So you could create an intent, and you could be in a conceptual relationship with it because you think just because you said it. So it's very important to be able to be in that simultaneously in the transcendent state of aware of your own awareness and in the immanent state where you're also active in your life. And this is what the quantum think system is intended to give us what I call a walking, talking, living meditation. But it's important for us to know that. If you want to know, why aren't I being more masterful in my manifestation, then look and see, what state are you in when you are creating from intent? So that's number 4. Okay, now the number 5 must know is that the first phase of manifestation is an experience. Now, we kind of have mentioned, we know this, that the outer results are reflecting our inner state, our inner world. However, when I'm saying this, we could ask ourselves, well, how do we manifest an experience? Because what I mean by that is an experiential feeling tone of our being. How do we manifest that experience, without having to go out and run around and try to do it in the outer world first? And the way that we do that is what I call a new world view of learning, the art of distinguishing. What is the art of distinguishing? The art of distinguishing means to bring something into your awareness in the present moment through the subtleties of language in such a way that you literally give yourself an experience. Now, why is this essential? Because to go from merely knowing the wisdom, teaching the wisdom, espousing the wisdom, to actually embodying it, to actually living it, means that we need to give ourselves an experience of it, because this is how we feel life. We feel life through experience. And through quantum thinking, we are able to give ourselves an experience that literally can alter the past, present, and future in an instant. This is what I call transformation as distinct from change. So when we were distinguishing, having thoughts from the mind field surrounding us, as distinct from initiating a creative thought, an active consciousness from your own intent, we gave ourselves an experience in our state that will be with us forever. It's like, if you want to know what does it taste like to eat pasta, you can read about it, you can look at it, you can feel it, but until you taste it, you don't know what is the experience of pasta. And once you've tasted it, you always know what it is. So it changes your relationship. It literally transforms your relationship to the past, present, and future. So these are the 5 things that you absolutely must know to become masterful with effortless manifestation.
I love that. And I know something you're passionate about is helping us make the leap from knowing, the wisdom of science and spirituality to actually living it and experiencing it, as you were just saying. And already, just through what we've done in this call, I feel that leap. So that's an amazing thing. I'd love to be able to share 1 or 2 success stories with them, just so that they can see what's possible from some of the people that have worked with what you're teaching here.
Definitely, yes. What I love to use as one of my success stories, because this is such a great story, is that we had a client, a quantum thinker, who was a hospital pharmacist by profession for many years. And he started listening to the audios of the quantum think distinctions. And he listened to them every day. He listened to at least one. They're not long. They're like from 15 to 20 minutes long. So it's a very simple thing to listen to. And so I love that I'm in this series called Effortless Manifestation, because what if all you had to do was just listen to, and in this case, it's myself and my husband and partner, Ellen Collins, And because it works multidimensionally, like the quantum reality, that it's coming in, energetically. It's coming in as a spiritual connection. It's penetrating in every way. It's coming in intellectually. It's coming in. And all you do is listen. Well, he listened. And he had, at the same time, he had this dream that he loved horse racing, thoroughbred horse racing. And he always wanted to have a horse and a business. But he was a hospital pharmacist, and this gave him his, certainty in his income and stability and everything else. But the bottom line is he started listening, and he created an intent to be an owner of a thoroughbred horse. And an opportunity came along, and he took it. And not only that, the other part of the story I like is that he invited Alan and I to be part of it. So he had, a small group of people who I didn't know anything about the business, but I love the animals. They're gorgeous. So I said yes. And through quantum thinking, now, first of all, this horse became a championship horse. Well, I should say, first of all, he got his dream because not only did he own the horse, and he's now breeding, he has 2 professions, but the horse became a champion. And I'm saying it's because Alan, this client, and myself decided that this horse was going to be a champion. Now, the trainer said, every owner thinks their horse is better than it is. The person who broke the horse, they call it, to become a racehorse, when he was sending it down to the trainer, to go into real training for racing, he said to him, well, to tell you the truth, it's an okay horse, nothing great. This horse became a champion. It won 11 races out of 42. And was in the Breeders' Cup, which was the top racing event in the entire world. Now, this was not going to happen. None of it. So that's like a very, that's one of those, wow. And all he did was listen to those audios every day.
Wow.
Now, there was another one, a person who wrote to me who wanted to be an actor. He was living in Hollywood. He was basically, failing, not making it. He started listening to the quantum think distinctions that someone I didn't know, I never met, not like the first person. And he wrote to me and thanked me profoundly for having his whole acting career get kick-started. Now, I want to tell you something because it's kind of cute in relationship. Everyone is either looking, most of us anyway, are looking for the one, or when we find the one, we want to make sure the relationship works, right? And
right.
Like everything else, we can either be creating our relationship consciously, or it's happening in what I call the default set of circumstances. One very important thing about manifestation, something is always getting manifested. It's either getting manifested consciously because we are aware that we're doing it and initiate it, or it's getting manifested from the default set of circumstances, the patterns and habits from the past. And this is why it's so important, Kristen, for this conscious awakening that happens naturally with quantum thinking. So what happened is that Alan and I, we've been working together, and we've been married a long time, 23 years. And we keep, by the way, our relationship very fresh because of what I'm saying to you. Because when I see it starting to go into the drift, I say, hey, let's wake up. Let's create something here. I want to keep the excitement alive, not just go through the motions of being in a relationship. Well, one day, years ago, this is really Alan's story. He and I got into a, quote, heated debate. We got into a pretty big argument, and I don't remember what it was about. I'm sure he doesn't either. At the time, we were doing the Quantum Think Audio Coach as CDs. Now we only do them in streaming. So he had the CDs in his car. And it was a very unusual thing because he thought, he actually left the apartment. So you could tell it was a very heated debate. So he got into the car and he was very upset with me, starts driving, sticks a CD in, and he said this is how he tells it. He heard himself speaking to himself. And he started laughing because he said he tuned in to the exact message that he needed in that moment, which was non-attachment. This is part of the Quantum Think distinction, perspective of all perspectives, is being able to practice the state of non-attachment so that you don't get hooked and pulled by the circumstances of life. And immediately he turned the car around and came home. And it was as if nothing ever happened, because we live in fields, we exist in fields, and life is holographic. That's the first Quantum Think distinction, holographic and holistic. When you shift your state, because we exist in fields and because life is holographic, everything shifts with you. So as I like to say, it takes one to tango in a quantum world.
Dianne, I love everything that you've shared with us. It's so clear. You make something that could be very scientific or could feel really out there and difficult. It feels not only graspable, but as you said, I can feel during the call even leaping into it. And obviously, there's so much more to learn from you. So I asked you to create a special offer for everyone who's listening, and you agreed, which I thank you for that. So everyone, what I'm going to do, I'll give you the link, and then I'm going to have Dianne talk you through what you'll find there so that you can experience it for yourself. So go ahead, click on the special offer button that's on this webpage, and we will take you right there. And Dianne, I'd love if you could talk us through what we'll find there.
Great. And, I have to just say, I am so excited that you're giving me the opportunity to present this to everyone, because I know that this work has come through me, and I know that it really isn't about me and my story. This is really about our story and going to our next leap in consciousness. And what I love, because, I love entertainment, I love ease, and what I love about these audios is that I spent a lot of time, a lot of years actually, getting them to be simple. There are famous writers who say, I would have written you, I think it was Winston Churchill, a shorter letter, but I didn't have time because, it takes time to get something very succinct, very clear, very simple. And also I love that I produced these with my husband, with both of our voices. So we have the male voice, and he's English, and he has a beautiful, resonant voice, and with a female voice. And so it's just such a whole experience. The product is called Quantum Think Audio Coach, Thinking for a New World. And what it is the 10 fundamental, the core quantum think distinctions, because in the total system there are 21. But I wanted to give the ones that are absolutely, if you get these distinctions, actually because it's holographic, if you got one, you get the whole. When you start to listen to it, you'll hear that the whole of it is present in every one of them with a different, focus, like shining a laser light on each principle. So the 10 fundamental quantum think distinctions, and it includes an introduction to quantum think. So it's kind of giving another overview of something like I just said, going into different ways of saying it. And so there's an introduction, and then the 10 distinctions that you'll be getting is holistic and holographic, which absolutely has you integrate, rather than trying to balance the, quote, parts of your life, you integrate life as a whole, personal, professional, and all of it. And you learn to be complete moment by moment so that you are in that 0 point state, so that you have no static on the radio of your being, so that you're always in the state where you are the most effective creator. And I'm going to go through them really fast, okay?
Great.
The second distinction is observer-created reality. We talked a little bit about that, and this will take you deeper into what it is to shape the field, shape your outcomes on an ongoing basis as a way of life, knowing yourself as the observer in our observer-created reality. The third quantum think principle is infinite possibility. Now, this is a very important one because it, again, emphasizes that we, every moment, can think from an infinite number of possibilities, but what gets in the way of it are these least action pathways, the automatic thoughts and habits and patterns. And this principle shows you how to interrupt it and really think from infinite possibility. Incredible things become possible. The fourth one is called success to mastery. And this is where, even though we've all had a lot of successes, we're in a time, because of our speeding up of the pace of change and the increasing complexity and choices, where it's time to function, to operate from the state of mastery. And that means knowing what to do in the moment it needs to be done without even having to think about it. This is that distinction, takes you there. The fifth one is called allowing. We're all very familiar with the principle of allowing. I distinguish it actually as a faculty of mind that we can generate actively, so that this goes hand in hand with the power of intent. The number 6 quantum think distinction is called being in one conversation. This distinction is one of my favorites. It is, you want to know what it is to think holistically and holographically, is to see your conversations as one whole, one conversation with many voices, to see listening not as a skill, not as, you're going to sit there and try to be active listener. No, this teaches you to listen with your whole being. And I can tell you that this absolutely will shift the quality of every relationship in your life, being in one conversation. The number 7 is transformation as distinct from change. Very important for those of us who are consciously creating and manifesting, because we don't realize that in order to change something, you have to keep it around. So we're keeping in place the very thing that we're trying to get rid of. And when we have this as a distinction, what is it to affect a transformation? Is that we're creating what we do want without attention on what we don't. And this is very, very important. Number 8, the 4 aspects of knowing. In our live programs, I always say, if you get this, you get everything. And these 4 aspects are, we're in unawareness, we're in conceptual knowing, intuitive knowing, or participatory knowing. The power of intent and manifestation happens in the participatory knowing. This is a way to gauge yourself when you're not getting the result you want, and enables you to put yourself in that state of participatory knowing. The number 9 distinction is, I mentioned before, perspective of all perspectives. This is where you learn and you experience where you can be with any perspective without getting hooked by it, without being flotsam and jetsam or a leaf in the wind. Every time somebody says something, you're in reaction. This has you grounded in non-attachment. That doesn't mean you're detached. It means you're fully participating, and at the same time that you're not attached. Now, when we're attached to a result we want from our intent, what happens is we have so much energy on it, Kristen, that we can actually push it out of the way. So this practice of non-attachment is very, very important to mastering manifestation. And the number 10, being centered. This is where you learn to become centered in present moment awareness, so that you're actively participating in all the roles you play in ordinary, everyday, daily life, and at the same time you're maintaining that state of awareness where you are the watcher of what's going on, and it is in that awakened state where you are a true choice. So that is the program. But what comes with it is, these are in PDFs, a written, what I call Quantum Think Essences, a brief overview of every one of the Quantum Think distinctions I just mentioned, with the recreation. Every distinction has a recreation, I call it, to recreate, to give you that experience in your real life. So recreating the distinction in your life, and it's written out on these quantum think essences for your convenience. You will also see a graphic of the characteristics of the old worldview, the industrial worldview, and the new worldview, the quantum worldview, so that you can make this distinction in your thinking. We are also offering with this part of the package coaching articles that distinguish the difference between intent and intention. I didn't go into it, I won't now, but it's very important to be able to distinguish intent as that shamanic activation of the field and intention as a future goal. That's very, very different, but people tend to use them interchangeably. And then there are coaching worksheets to help you put this into your actual life. So that's it.
That's it. That's so much. But what I love is that you've broken it down in a way that even though it's so much, it doesn't feel overwhelming, I guess is the perfect way to put it.
No, as I say, effortless manifestation is all you have to do is listen. Now, it's good if you do the practices. It's good if you do the worksheets. None of that is necessary to affecting the kind of mastery with manifestation that all of us want. You know, I didn't mention that I'm also putting in 3 bonus gifts. I recently did an audio on a conscious wealth teleseminar, and I have received such amazing feedback from this. It's called It Really Is About the Money, and it's all about creating a conscious relationship with money through all of the dimensionality of life. You listen to this, and you will have a new relationship with money, a much more empowering and divine relationship with money. So that's an audio gift that I want everyone to hear. Giving an article which helps you understand even clearer, it's even simpler, everything about quantum thinking and applying it to your business. And it's called You Can't Get There from Here, Why Change Doesn't Work. And that's, of course, all about starting from where you want to be, starting with the result. And thirdly, I'm putting in a chapter from my book, and this is a very important chapter. It's called The Holo Movement of Purpose, and it's because in this chapter, you will be guided and given the clues to refine your purpose. I'm very passionate about every one of us, Kristen, being in touch with our purpose, really owning what we're here uniquely to give. It doesn't mean you're going to save the world. It doesn't mean you have some big overarching thing that, you know, you're going to be afraid of or you're not feeling that way. It means that each of us have unique gifts and experiences that we've been given, that when you distinguish them, you will notice all the different ways that you express your purpose. So those are the 3 gifts that I am just honored to give.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, let me ask you this. When people start using what you have here, what are some of the immediate things that they could expect to start to experience or feel or notice?
Well, what you will immediately notice, and everyone says this, is you will feel calmer, more at ease, more positive about life, and more in command of your life. You will also have, I'm not really talking about time in these particularly, but you will have a new experience of time so that you're not overwhelmed by this pace. But that's really it. It's like you're feeling good, you're feeling positive, you're feeling at ease, you're feeling relaxed.
Amazing. And obviously all of those states are essential to manifesting the things you desire. So
exactly.
That's incredible. Okay, so that's fantastic. And I really see and feel, and I so appreciate this about everything you're doing. First of all, I love how much you clearly love what you're doing. I mean, that's just such an amazing thing to be able to be in the presence of that type of energy. But I really can feel how you're not one of those people that just wants us to know about it. You want us to experience it. And that is a huge, huge leap, as you put it, you know, to really shift to the experiencing of all of this so that we can achieve mastery. And I just thank you for everything you're doing. I think you're fantastic. I love your energy. I love how you communicate all of this. I know that this was a very exciting call for me, and I'm thrilled to have been able to share it with this extraordinary group of people that shows up and listens to these calls. So Thank you for all of that. Absolutely. And I want to give the last words to you. Do you have anything you want to share with us to send us off with?
I would say that really what I was just talking about with regard to knowing you're magnificent. It's not just a platitude. It's not just, well, oh yeah, we all want to be in love with ourselves. We do. But when you realize in your experience, this is why I'm so really kind of, enthusiastic, exuberant about people actually experiencing yourself as a contributor, yourself as valuable, yourself as someone who just in who you are, just in what you emanate, just your state alone is a gift to others who you're close to and to the world. And that's why I am so thrilled to be in the presence of your company, everyone on this call, because I know you are committed to living in your highest nature. And I really appreciate that, because what you emanate, we receive. And of course, what you emanate, you manifest.
Wonderful, wonderful way to take the call out. I think that's just fantastic. And I know that everybody has just gotten so much from this call. I certainly have. So thank you, Dianne. You've been fantastic. And thank you, everyone, for being here. And until the next time, keep manifesting. Bye-bye, everyone.